Hello everybody, welcome to another video. My name is Infiniti, and if you don't know, I'm the face, the voice, and the hands behind all the content here under Infiniti Craft & Co. Welcome to the final video of 2022. I know, I said I was taking a break, but to be honest, I have been just bouncing around this studio in the last few days, and I just realized that, I've done quite a few things this year. Not a whole heck of a lot, but just enough. I believe at the beginning of 2022 I stated that I wanted to make this like a design-oriented year and kind of flesh through some of the stuff that I'd written down and sketched out or just had floating in my mind. So today I wanted to show you all the stuff that I actually got to this year and just talk about them a little bit, model them. Most of the stuff you'll see today has a pattern out there, or the pattern is pending. So if you're interested in that, you can support the channel and find that in my shop over on my website. And I'll leave that link down in the description box and pinned in the top comment below. Alright, so I wanted to kind of go in chronological order, but first and foremost, I have one of my water bottle holders. I ended up revamping some of my patterns this year, which I guess is why I feel like I made more than what I did, but nonetheless, I revamped my water bottle holder that I designed, I guess, last year. And I did a video tutorial on it and ended up incorporating that in the written pattern. I really like how I re-crocheted it. This one is a crochet pattern because it feels sturdier and more coarse, I guess. With this black, it wasn't the same brand as the color B, so I double stranded it because it was a thinner cotton yarn. And it worked out really great. It feels very substantial, so I was very happy with this. This is the 32 ounce size, so it does fit that water bottle. It's a little bit bigger, so it slides in and out pretty easy, which I guess is fine. It just depends. My 64 ounce one that I remade this year took some working because it was so tight and all that yarn was the same brand, so it fits more snug on my 64 ounce bottle, which I don't have over here right now. But I was actually quite proud of this, so I've made quite a few of these this year. I did the commission one, and then I ended up making one for my grandma, and then I did two for myself. So that was pretty good, and I think that was around September-ish, October-ish, while I was showing that off. I went on a whole tirade on Instagram, and I think people were kind of tired of seeing it. But nonetheless, this is a really easy and enjoyable project for me to kick back with, and it was quick. You can hash this out in like a day or so. It was really great for me. Okay, this next one is super special. This is my birthday sweater from last year. And I know this video says 2022, but let me preface this by saying I started this in 2021, but I didn't finish it until February this year. Which was not my expectation, but it happens. This one was weird. I designed it in a very weird way, I have to admit. But I was trying to experiment with the shaping of sweaters because I've done off the shoulder before, I've done the regular fitted shirts before, but I wanted to do something a little new where I could kind of go between wearing it like it's supposed to be or wearing it off the shoulders, and this ended up being kind of a sweater dress, I guess. I did try it on. I didn't get to do a full photo shoot on it back in February. For one, it was snow outside, and it was kind of snowing when I went outside in it. And my grandma's going to see this and probably fuss at me because I went outside with the shoulders out, but it was very brief. I was outside and then I ran back in because it was cold. But this I like to accessorize with a wide belt, and I'm going to pop up some b-roll of me in these actual garments because it's kind of hard to visualize it. This is, of course, one of my oversized things, and it comes down to my knees. I don't know if you can see that. It comes down to my knees. So, needless to say, this ended up a lot longer than I wanted it to be, but overall I like the idea of an oversized sweater. So, I think all's well that ends well with this one. I was anticipating knitting another one of these, but probably smaller. More, not contouring, but less roomy. I was, looking to be able to wear it without the wide belt, but then I found myself in a mad search for wide belts that would fit perfectly with this sweater because I do love this colorway a lot, which was why I kind of started it with these colors, because I was like, okay, I really like this. It's going to be my birthday sweater, special day. I didn't end up going out for my birthday last year, or this year, but I figured at some point I would find somewhere special to go and wear this to, and I still might. next year, like towards the early part of fall, so I can get some decent pictures in my sweater, because it fits me nicely, as you guys will see. But yeah, no, and I don't think this is necessarily a bad way to do the sleeves. I think I was just a little self-conscious because I've never seen a sweater designed like that before, or like, because the arms, they're like, wee. They don't lay down flat like a normal sweater would. But again, I was looking for the off-the-shoulder thing, and then I was kind of improvising with the extra material. So, I don't know. I think it was a worthy experiment. There's actually no pattern for this yet. Like I said, this year I was planning on knitting another one and writing out the pattern for it. Well, I wrote out the pattern by hand, but I haven't typed it up and formatted it or anything. And I wanted to also do a video on how I did it. So, that's been a big thing with my design process in 2022. I've sat back and slowed it down just a little bit. Right now I think my Etsy shop says I have like 36 patterns total, which is great. I love that I've been able to produce so many designs, but like at the same time, as I continue to move forward, I would love to do video instruction, which I found some success with the mountain, it's the Mountain Forager version of my garden shrug that I designed last year. I did some experimentation with doing video segments for that cardigan. I don't think I showed how to knit the whole thing, or I did, and it's segmented. I don't remember at the moment. So terrible. But I found that I like that process, and also sometimes when you're following a pattern, you read the abbreviations and the instructions and you just stare at it for a minute because it's like, what in the heck does this even mean? So, you know, just going off of experience, I thought that adding video in with my patterns would make them more worthwhile, especially, you know, to the people that consume them. So this is one of those special babies that will probably live rent-free in my mind next year as I continue my design journey. There's a couple of projects that I guess I have to finish. Well, not have to, but I really would like to finish in 2023. So recording the tutorial for this one, and you know, that dress that I started on in 2020, I would like to knit the sleeves on it. I have yet to do that. I've been swamped, so I haven't gotten to it yet. But I want to do that, and then the easiest one to do right now is to finish the hat that I started knitting with my hand spun yarn, which I'll show you guys later because it's technically a whip. But okay, now on to the next project. Okay, so this year I think was, you know, I don't know, I think this year was a continuation of last year. Last year I was on a knitting spree, so most of the patterns and stuff that I put out were knitting oriented towards that crowd, and I had a lot of fun with that. One of the projects that I started in 2021, so last summer, I started this project in last summer, and it was a very slow process, right? So I was very tuned in with a slow knitting journey, I think, as I put it at the time. Okay. This was a lace weight yarn that I bought on accident earlier that year, but it was so dang beautiful. So look, I was on Etsy and I was surfing and just trying to find yarns, I think earlier that year, and this colorway caught my eye. And I think I have another cape. No, I don't. No, I don't. Okay, I don't. I used 2 of them for this, I think, because I wanted to... Wait a minute. I don't know. I need to look through my stash. I feel like there's just something in here that tells me I have another skein of this Jubilee yarn, which is the rainbow colorway that I used for the Genesis top. So this was my off-the-shoulder summer shirt design. It has a drawstring around here that you can't see because it's black, and then it's seamed up the back, which I liked at the time, but I don't know. I feel like I won't seam it up like that on the next go around. I feel like I will probably just tube knit this to an extent. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind, but I do really like this top, if for nothing else, the colors. And I wore it out once or twice over the summer, and I didn't get any good pictures in it. I was so sad. This was also during the time I was redoing my studio, so, you know, I didn't have a lot of in-studio options to take pictures at that time, so, I don't know, I'll probably at some point re-photograph this particular top, but it was a very fun process, and this was the first pattern released this year that had the full-fledged video tutorial included in it, back when I was at my other table with a different background that was not the white one that I do my tutorials on. because I was temporarily displaced because the ceiling did its thing earlier in the year. But nonetheless, I don't know if this was my favorite make of the year, but it's a pretty close second. I think just because it's vibrant. I like color block. Even if I don't wear a lot of color, I love the color block. So, you know, I'll probably revisit this or, you know, experiment with making another one if I do have that other cake of this Jubilee yarn. But I found it on Etsy, like I said, and I can find a link, I think, to that seller and put it down in the comments below if you guys are interested in it. It's just so interesting. I like how it transitioned and everything, and it was kind of interesting also just I don't know, separating everything out and measuring it. I don't know. So I feel like after I worked with this, I would probably like plan pooling a little bit. I haven't tried that yet, but I feel like it'd be an adventure. So I might at some point. But this was one of those simple things that I enjoyed over the course of this year. I knitted this with 2.75mm knitting needles, and it was single-stranded. So give you a little window into that. This right here, this next pattern that I have, it took me most of the year, I think, to complete this. I don't think I got around to finishing this until July or early August. The Oculus Cardigan, what is Cardigan? I don't know. I can't talk today. I blame it on it being the end of the year. But anyway, the Oculus Cardigan was probably one of my pride and joys over this year when I finished this. If nothing else, it was for the sleeves. When I was designing it, I did this little solid piece right here that stretches a lot, and I liked that design by itself, so I released that as a free pattern, and it was called the Rice Bolero, which can be found for free on my blog, and I'll also leave that linked in the comments. I guess I'll have a laundry list of things to leave you guys down in the comments. But I don't know, I really liked the idea of this, and what started it all, I won some yarn from a giveaway, I think, and I got this wild idea to revisit a sketch that I did a couple years ago. And when I did the sketch a couple years ago, I didn't think I had the skill level or the patience to do what I wanted to do. But this year I just went for it. And so I set up and crocheted like 218 motifs, sewed them all together to make this cardigan. And it is an off-the-shoulder cardigan. And I know this is going to clash with this navy, but I kind of don't care. I love the flare on the sleeves, okay? So it was worth every single minute of sewing those circles together. You know, sometimes when you do design, you just kind of have to put your music in, sit back, and just go for it, because otherwise you won't. So this is what it looks like on. I guess you guys can see most of it. I don't know. I had this styled with a pink tank top that my mom got me. I don't wear pink, so the thing had been sitting in my closet, and I didn't know what to do with it, but once I made this, I was like, okay, this is perfectly matching, because there was like white and pink swirl in the tank top, and I have some pictures in that. Some very rough pictures, but anyway, this is what this looks like. This was really exciting. Camera batteries are sometimes one of my biggest enemies in this studio, so I don't really remember what I was saying a moment ago, but I think the moral of the story with this project is that the process was well worth it. I have plans to crochet up another one in colors that I do actually tend to wear, so like a lot of blues and greens are part of that design, and maybe I'll record for this pattern, because this one actually doesn't have a tutorial on it, and I don't think the Rice Bolero does either, because I feel like if I would have done a tutorial for the Rice Bolero, I would have just eventually went ahead and did the video for this. But a lot of the process with this was figuring out how I wanted to sew these things together, so I also didn't want to be fleshing that out while I was trying to do a tutorial for a paid pattern. But I did figure it out, and I think it looks great. The fit and flare thing is awesome to me, so I'll be doing this again. And I think there were some things that I hashed out that I'll be able to reflect in quote-unquote updated version, I guess. But what I did do, instead of a video, I put in all of my sketches and how I did construct this thing, so that's a part of the pattern for more visual people. I don't know, I've been working on things this year to kind of make my patterns more conducive to visual, well, I guess that's a bad word, but yeah, visual learners, as they say. Because a lot of people, they love designs, but they don't read patterns, and where I do try to kind of help with the abbreviations and stuff like that, sometimes it can be a headache to try to make something when you can't read a pattern, so adding in those extra little visual perks, I think is fun and worthwhile for that process. Anyway, this was the last of my summer projects. So I did 2 big summer projects, kind of 3 if you want to count the top part of this cardigan. But, okay. The next one, you guys are very familiar with because we just finished it. Of course, I don't think you guys really need an introduction to this one. It is my Christmas sweater, and I haven't decided if I want to hang this one up yet. I don't know if my garment rack wants to handle this or not, but this was a beloved pattern for me this year. You can check out that it was my last vlog that I did for Christmas. You can check that out if you want to see me in it. But this was so much fun to do. I hadn't done a crochet along or a knit along in a very long time. So just getting on and kind of doing this and taking you guys through my design process and construction process was really fun for me. And I guess you guys really liked it too, because a lot of people tuned in to that, and I was so glad. So I want to do another kind of design along next year, but I don't know what it's going to be for yet, so don't hold me to it. But this was fun, and I think I might actually end up making this in a less festive version. I have been trying to talk myself into buying the yarn for it, but I don't know at the moment, right? Because I have plans for next year. I have pattern plans already, because, you know, such is my life. But this one was kind of the, I don't know, the best part of my maker year, you know? This was the one I was most excited for. Because, oh, I could show you guys the old one. I can show you guys the old one. Okay, y'all can hear this. This is the old chunky thing, yeah, that I made in 2019, and of course, like, bells were missing. I made it for an event where I was, like, with kids and painting faces and stuff. So, like, I didn't want to put a lot of stuff in it, but I also kind of wanted to be festive for the day, and naturally did not have festive things in my closet. So I decided to quickly crochet this in 2 days and sew jingle bells onto it. Now, I anticipated putting jingle bells on that other one, but ultimately, like I said, I wasn't going out for Christmas this year, so I didn't see a point in doing it. But maybe next year I will and do a little video on that. But this is the old one. I have the old picture somewhere. I pop it up every now and again when I talk about my Christmas designs. So maybe I'll find it, maybe I'll put it up so you guys can see it again when it was on. But yeah, this was interesting. This won me the ugly Christmas sweater contest at the time, which, you know, looking at it now, I'm like, yeah, that was deserving, because this is not good. Like, objectively, it is not good, but it was fun, so that's all that matters. I think I used some Hometown USA. This red and white color is no longer made, it's discontinued. So when I think it was 2020 when I went back, and I was like, okay, I can get this and remake this sweater. I was a little heartbroken because I couldn't find a yarn like this red and white yarn to recreate my sweater. And so now you guys kind of know how long this Christmas sweater was in the works in my mind, talking all the way back to 2020. But nonetheless, it's finally done, so that was exciting. And this can go back on the garment rack where it somewhat belongs. Alright, these last 2 projects that I completed in the good year of 2022. One was conceptualized, planned, and started this year, which is the one behind me that I have been ignoring and kind of quiet about. And this other one I have been working on since last year. So this beloved piece of wool that I'm leaning on right now, that you cannot see, I started it. That is my grandmother. I started it last year, and I don't know, I was inspired because of autumn, and last year was the first semester where I was actually able to go in person to my campus. So naturally going in fall, and let me preface this by saying my campus is on a piece of land with beautiful like autumnal trees during August through November. Grandma. So, what was I saying? Jesus. Sometimes noises, like, do you guys ever have that problem when you're doing videos, or if you do videos where like random noises in your background start to distract you? Such is my life. But anyway, I was so inspired by that because I love autumn. I love the end of the year because it's just so beautiful. But I also had the conundrum of having yarn that I'd had for years. Like, I mean years. This yarn, it was Woolies Thick and Quick, and I had this yarn through 3 different rebrands. So there was the old like brown label with the gold lettering that Lion Brand used to have. Then there was that other kind of, I don't think I have the labels anymore. Dang. Or do I? Do I? I don't have the old labels. Okay, I threw them away like a sane person. Okay. And I guess that's because I finished writing out the pattern for it. So that's fair. But I had them from 3 different rebrands, and a lot of it was from the first kind of original labeling. Then there was this intermediate thing, and then there had a few skeins from what the labels look like now. So I was like, okay, I need to get rid of all of this. So this project took 11 skeins of that, and they were knitted. It was knitted on a set of 12.5 millimeters. Now my process probably could have been simpler for the pocket design in retrospect, but I like the end result. So for this project, first of all, I was being a little special, and I didn't take pictures completely of my process. And so usually when I'm designing, I will take pictures as I go. So if I do decide to put the pattern out, I already have the pictures for it. But I didn't do that this time because this is another one of those projects where I was figuring it out. And it started last year in August, and I put it down for my birthday sweater. So I worked on this pocket shawl for the entirety pretty much of the semester up until the point where I started working on the Christmas sweater on November 8th, and I've just finished it within this week. So, you know, it's taken a while. It's taken a while, but I feel like it was worth it. The process was worth it, and like I said, with those pockets, I was actively trying to figure out how I wanted to do that because I wanted pockets that were embedded into the project, but I didn't want to do the standard, like, pick them up like I did with the garden shrug that I did last year. I wanted to do something different, and I don't know. I was on a creative warpath when I thought of it, and since I did it on one side, I had to do it to the other side, so it worked out. It was easier the second go around than it was the first go around, I guess, because I'd done it before. So this is the Breath of Autumn pocket shawl. It is a beast. I don't really remember what was talked about before my camera cut out on me, but I will reiterate that I did a little bit of research on pocket shawls at the time when I started this. They were kind of popular, kind of trendy, and I was like, okay, let me try my hand at it. And I found that the typical pocket shawl was 60 to 65 inches. This one is 60 inches, so it's on the short side, quote unquote. But in case you haven't noticed, y'all, I am not tall. I'm not. I am 5'6". And sometimes I make these long garments with the ambition of, creating the illusion of height. But I'm not. And anyway, I don't know. This was really great. The colors just kept me going with this. And of course the cabling. You guys know I'm a cable fanatic. And I often try to find ways to incorporate them. Anyway, I often try to incorporate them in my designs that I put out. So this was another one of those. I did a 12-stitch cable, and then I have a standard like 8-stitch cable going up the center that leads into the pockets. I think when I go about remaking this, like I said, I didn't take pictures, and of my process, and I feel kind of bad about it now because this is such a beautiful colorway. But I think in the future, when I go and pick up the pocket flap, I might attempt to put a cable to continue the pattern here. This is a left cross cable, so I would probably continue that up until the part where I make this buttonhole, and then continue it after. I don't know, that sounds complicated. So we'll see about that one, but it was definitely something that crossed my mind as I was finishing off the pocket flaps, and at that point I was just like, you know, Infiniti, why not keep your life simple for a change? And so I did, and I just did I think about 15 rows of stockinette for the pockets. And I tried this on the other day. I did, and I wore it outside, and it got a lot of love. Apparently it's very pretty to other people also, so that's something that I look for when it comes to like releasing my patterns. So I'm like, okay, it looks good to me, but that's because I put my heart and soul into my designs. Do other people like it? And apparently they did. A few people asked me if I sold them, and I was like, I don't. There might be one in the shop next year because I don't need 2 of these, and I will be starting the recording process for this shawl pattern. I think in the next one I might actually get a couple more skeins of the yarn that I plan on using for it, because I had 13 skeins of this, and or 14, because I think I have 3 on my shelf right now, plus the little piece of leftover from that 11th skein that I used for this. And I plan on making like some mittens or something with the leftover. But I think I would add an extra skein of length to the next one, because this is great for me, but like if you're taller, you might want something that hangs a little lower, so you would add more to it. But I wanted something where my hands could definitely fit in the pockets if I'm wearing it, and they do that. These pockets are super thick, so like I was saying, the pocket was knitted separately, and then I kind of grafted it in. I suppose that's the word for it. I grafted it into the pattern itself, so it was all one piece as I was continuing to work. And so it's double layered, and when I wore this out the other day, it was 25 degrees, and I was dropping off orders from that I got over the Christmas holiday at the post office. And you know, I when I first went outside and got in the car, I had no gloves on, and my hands were great. So this is warm, and I'm happy about this. I have no idea. I hope that by next fall, or not next fall, this fall, I will have completed the video. That means a power knitting kind of summer. We'll see how that works out. I don't know why I do this to myself. I always end up knitting my winter projects in the heat of summer. So, you know, just one of those designer things, right? Got to stay ahead of the season. But I think this year I plan to more so work on going back and updating some of my old patterns. I put out a blog post earlier in the month just stating some changes that I plan to make to my website. The free patterns for the most part will still remain to be free, but like the paid versions will be upgraded and have videos on them. So I'm working on the Nearly Solid shawl right now, which was one of my first patterns that I put out along with like the Santa hat and stuff. But the Santa hat, I have the tutorial here on YouTube, so I'm not going to bother that. And I think there's another shawl pattern that I put out where the tutorial is also here on YouTube in my project tutorial playlist, which I'll leave linked at the end of this video in case you guys are curious about all the projects I've put out there. But yeah, you know, this year I plan on taking it slow and easy. This year felt kind of strong for my designs, so I was happy with that. I do have a few projects that I plan on starting and finishing this year, so we'll see about that. I'll talk about that more at the end of this video. Alright, so this is the last idea that I had, which you guys can see here. I put out a blog post about that Breath of Autumn pocket shawl, and also this one. So I'll also leave that linked in the top comment down below. Like I said, laundry list. But this concept, I think I was kind of mulling it over at the end of 2021, and definitely in January of 2022. But the main kind of idea around this particular project was, how come nobody's ever like knitted the spike stitch? It's a crochet stitch, don't get me wrong, but it was a curiosity of mine, like how come nobody's ever modified this to a knitting stitch? And so me being me, I decided to do just that, and I did a sample swatch of it probably in March, and I was so happy with the success of it. So I was like, okay, this needs to be a sweater. And at the time I had no idea what I was gonna do. As far as the sweater, I didn't know if I wanted to necessarily commit to a 4-weight yarn, which wouldn't look bad because this looks pretty decent, but this was just like with some scrap yarn that I had. I don't really know why I decided on this yarn. It is Wool in the Gang. It is the Crazy Sexy Wool. I got it, first of all, I got it on sale. I think it was one of my early on yarn sprees where I was just like, ooh, I want this yarn. And then later I was probably like, ooh, this yarn specifically would look good with this and it would work up fast. So that's, I guess, how I ended up settling on this. And I'm glad that I did, because it did work up very fast. I started this back in April. I bought the yarn in late March, started this in April, and then I put it down because I was working on the Oculus Cardigan. So, you know, this sat in a basket for a while, and I picked it up again after finishing the Christmas sweater, and while I was procrastinating on weaving in the ends from the Breath of Autumn pocket shawl. So, needless to say, this got picked up and was finished within a week and a half. So that was really great. I used, I don't know what size these are, guys. I used these knitting needles, and I don't know where my circulars are at the moment. I imagine they're sticking in one of these projects, but I used these Prim Ergonomic. I think these are the size 15 US. I think they're like a 12 millimeter also. So this was a year of chunky knitting, okay? But I used the straights and the circulars to accomplish this. And I am really satisfied with this result. I was so excited when I put it on because it fit just so. I always measure when I make my sweaters. Sometimes I purposely make the oversized things. Sometimes those oversized things are accidents, as I've had happen in the past. Looking at one specific project right now. But this was this fit me very well, and I actually ordered a blouse to put on this, but unfortunately, you know, it did not show up in time, so I'll have to take pictures and whatnots and release them next year for this. And I'm currently working on the video tutorial for this pattern because it's all typed up, and I'll also be taking progress pictures while I'm doing that, because I don't think I did it for this either, mostly because it was experimental. A lot of times with the super experimental designs that I do, I end up not doing the pictures, which I should get out of the habit. I should take pictures each step of the way, if nothing else for the gram, you know, so you guys can see my progress on things. But I've kept kind of quiet about this one for most of the year. I think I mentioned it back in like Channel Chat 95 when I came back online, and then it was just crickets about it up until now. This sweater, I think, or this vest rather, it's a sweater vest, Pride and Joy. And I realized I've been talking about this sweater and you guys couldn't even see it, so, you know, let me move my mannequin over here. This is what this sweater looks like. So it took 6 balls of yarn to do this, and earlier I was like, is that another ball of yarn? And I feel like that is indeed another ball of yarn. So I typically, when I have a design in mind, I will buy a little extra yarn than I think I'll need, because I'd rather have enough and in the same dye lot than to run out mid-design and then be sad. So I did that. I think, dang, yeah, the gray color is the predominant color, so I used more of that than I did with the green naturally, and I wrote it all out in my design pattern. But like right now I'm in that limbo period where I'm not really designing, but I'm working on videos for the channel, I'm working on upgrading designs, and I'm working on just finalizing a lot of stuff. So I'm just like kind of everywhere. But I look forward to actually wearing this outside come next semester. I think I have a couple of classes that don't involve me getting completely dirty. So I'll have fun wearing that sweater outside next year, and I'll be sure to get pictures of it. Anticipating like releasing this pattern by the end of January. Again, I'm recording a video for it, and considering how fast it works up, it shouldn't take terribly long, but just look for it about that time, or, you know, beginning of February. Oh my gosh, my blog anniversary is coming up in February. I have to do something for that. Probably not a design, but I'll have to do something for that. Anyway, I'm going to quit fiddling with these, and I'm going to show you guys what I'm currently working on, and I'll talk a little bit about the designs that I have planned. So, now on to the projects that I'm working on and currently have planned for 2023. So, where do I begin with this? I guess I'll talk about the simplest thing first, okay? All of these designs, they date back to 2021, but I just hadn't had time to execute them. Grandma. So now that I have a little bit of downtime and that my slate has pretty much been cleared, I can sit back and focus on these designs that have been living rent-free in my mind for a year. So, simplest first, and most recent, honestly. So, you guys know, I talked about it, I don't remember which channel chat number, I think it was 98, but don't quote me on it, or 108, wait, I don't know, I'm gonna stop guessing. I learned how to spin yarn this semester, and it has become something of a problem. And so I've been slowly collecting like little starter tools to get me started with actually enjoying that process. So I got a spindle. I showed you guys that. I did show you guys that, I think, but don't quote me on it. I got a spindle, and because I thought that I had to give back that old one, which I ended up not having to because he hates fiber art. But anyway, I started knitting a hat with the first batch of yarn that I spun up, and I was kind of like, not perturbed, but I was a little annoyed that I couldn't know exactly how many yards of yarn that I had for this. I knit up like 11 or 12 rows with that first round, which was pretty darn good. I think I was the one that made the most yarn out of class, because I just took to it. I find it so interesting, and one thing that I'm enjoying figuring out is just the not over twisting it, which I failed at heavily with this, but this was more experimental. I soaked the yarn here before I used it. I ended up using my yarn swift and my ball winder to get it to a point where I could just soak it. But that was a little process. And I got this, and it's super soft and squishy. It is wool, so I'll be wearing a stocking cap with this, because that's my whole problem with wool. I don't like wearing it on my head because it can kind of tangle with the hair and eat it out over time, and that's not something that I want. So I started knitting this on some 6mm, and then I had a bunch of extra fiber. I will put this back in the bag. I had a bunch of extra fiber, so, and he was like, oh, you can use most of it. So I commenced to spinning, and I had a very full spindle, which I took pictures of, and I either wrote a blog about it or I left it on Instagram somewhere. But I had a very full spindle of yarn, which I very recently, like within the last 3 weeks probably, finally took off my spindle. That was not a good sound, because I bought a little nitty nutty. Now this one is a little plastic thing, and it's for 1 yard, and you just snap it together and then you start using it to wrap your yarn. And it's a very cathartic process, I think. But nonetheless, I wrapped my yarn. I have not soaked this yet. I still have to take it off of here and soak it, and then I'll deal with winding it up and whatnots. But this is 67 yards of yarn, so I should be able to finish that hat, because at first I was just going to finish it off with a black acrylic, but I was like, I don't know, I don't really want to mess up my art yarn hat with like big box acrylic. So I was glad to have this, and hopefully it will turn out how I want it to. So this remains to be seen, but this isn't really a design thing. This is just kind of a fun thing for Infiniti to do, to wind down. So I'll probably be working on this as I go through these classes this semester, because I don't know. Some of them are just talking, but they don't require note taking, so I'm left kind of moving my fingers around and I don't really want to be antsy about it, so I just sit there and quietly knit it because I can like still make the eye contact and pay attention but also knit, so it's kind of fun. So that's one thing. This other one I'm working on, but it probably won't be released until December, to be honest. So there's another thing to look forward to. Last year, if you guys remember, I made the chain link cowl, and I was impressed with the yarn. It was, I don't know if I say this store's name right, but I call it Hobie, but it's probably Hobby, just knowing my luck. I bought their Metallico yarn, and it's a thick yarn. I used a 7mm hook when I made the chain link cowl, and I loved it. And I did a tutorial on it and put it up here on YouTube, which I linked to in the community posts a few days ago or last week or something like that. So with that design in mind, I started sketching after I stopped pressing the record button. And I sketched it out on a sheet of paper, and this piece of paper has been floating around this studio in very interesting locations all year. And so when it came to the end of the year, I'm like, I should really do that sweater idea that I had with that yarn. And so I feel like the top of it will be kind of similar to the chain link cowl. I haven't fully fleshed it out, I guess, but I'm going to try to follow my sketch as closely as possible because my sketches don't lead me astray. But I started on it, and what I did was I actually got Metallico Fine, and it's in this very olivey metallic green. I love it so much. It's so pretty. I started making it, and I based the sizing off of one of my turtlenecks that I like to wear all the time. So this is going to be a very interesting process. This is, I want to say, let me see, 5, it's 15. So this is only like 20 so rows. So this is going to take a minute. I'm not rushing it, but when I am done with it, oh my gosh, I can't wait to take pictures in it. So yeah, this is interesting. It started off with like a standard rib bottom, which I think is fine. And I finally found my leather pants. They're not fully leather, but my mom bought them for me some years ago, and I wanted to have them last year to accessorize with my chain link cowl, because New Year's, you know, but I couldn't find them for the life of me. Finally found them. So whenever I get to wear this, that photo shoot is going to be great. This next design, I don't know why I put the paper in there. Let's not step on the spindle. That is not how I wish to live my knitting life for 2023. Alright, so this last design that I have in mind for the year, and not for the whole year, guys, because obviously I can't keep my hands out of yarn, but the one that I have planned, it's a stitch that I started doing over the course of this summer, because I was going to do a tutorial on it, but then I was like, oh wait, this is great for a cardigan design for the summer, but summer was ending, so I didn't see a point in starting that while I was trying to finish the pocket shawl and Lord knows what else at the time. I think the Oculus Cardigan. There we go. So I ended up doing a reel on Instagram where I took some of this peekaboo lace weight silk off of my shelf and I caked it. So I just, I did the thing for a reel. And that reel ended up being incredibly popular. I don't know why Instagram picked that up, but it was one of the last ones that it picked up because lately they've just been flatlining and I don't care what I do. So that's why you guys kind of see the content over here too, because it picked up over here. So I don't know, it's been a thing with that, but I digress. I'm going to still do the stitch tutorial for this stitch, but I also wanted to make a cardigan with it so I can have a big sample swatch to show you guys. So that's coming later in the year. I can't wait to use this color. I also just wanted to find a way to use all this lace weight yarn. You guys know from last summer that I am partnered with Darn Good Yarn. I'm part of their affiliate program, so I don't know. I'll probably put this pattern on my blog if you guys like the design, or or if I'm just feeling like it. But I have 3 skeins to work with, and so I'm going to try to make it work within those 3 skeins. I think that's a good idea, because I'm not fully trying to destash, but I would like to start using some of the yarn off of my shelf. So like while I'm redesigning and updating patterns and stuff, that's kind of the opportunity to do that. So I'm looking forward to showing you guys all the designs this year, or this coming year, because it's still the 31st. So those are the 3 major projects that I plan on completing for 2023. I'm pretty certain that I had another one, and like I said, I wrote all this stuff down in a notebook, but the notebook has run from me, probably with good reason. So, you know, as the year continues and I reorganize my space, I'm sure I'll find said notebook and get started on some other design in the middle of the night, as I always do. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. It is the last video of the year. I think it was a lot of fun showing you guys all the stuff that I have made and finally revealing this thing, because it's been a minute for this and the pocket shawl, so they deserved a little time in the sun. Anyway, I'll be talking more about a couple of these designs as the new year continues on. I hope you guys have an incredible holiday, and until next time guys, happy making. I guess also, you know, I could mention that if you want to see my works in progress or learn about pattern updates and things like that, consider heading over to my blog and signing up for that newsletter so you don't miss out on blog updates. I don't update every day, but mostly when I just have something to talk about that's new with Infiniti Crafting Co. or new with the pattern design aspect, or if I just want to show off some fancy yarn, I'll do that over there. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm most active over there, and you can also find all my other social media in the description box below. Alright, I'm gonna stop talking.